Hello and welcome to Me and You and Nancy Drew, the podcast where I, Colleen,
and I, Megan,
are going through the Nancy Drew-universe one title at a time. Today we read The Mystery of the Ivory Charm by Carolyn Keene, of course. This is book 13 in the original Nancy Drew mystery stories, and we read the 1974 revised edition, which was published simultaneously in Canada, it says.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes. What did you think of this in general?
Well, compared to the Message in the Hollow Oak, I thought that the mystery was a bigger focus, which was good. Especially because I felt like the Message in the Hollow Oak, there was like a lot going on and most of it wasn't the mystery. So that was an improvement.
The racial dynamics?
The racial dynamics were far worse. Possibly.
I think the worst it's been.
Possibly the worst we've seen so far. And so we'll definitely be getting into that. But yeah.
I'm really hoping this is not a trend for just this writer.
Yes, especially since it feels like two back-to-back books with some very uncomfortable scenes as a modern reader, and definitely when viewing through a modern lens. You know, we've talked in the past and in our history episode about how the revisions were primarily in an attempt to bring the books that had more racial stereotypes and things like that to a more modern audience and to fix those things. And this one really missed the mark.
It did. Not to spoil too much, but just starting out with someone from a wild animal show is calling about a different problem that's not them presumably poaching and capturing wild animals. That's not even
the
issue.
Problem.
That's not the problem even a little bit.
We have no issue with that.
No, that's fine.
Now, to be clear, we, Colleen and Megan, have a problem with this.
Yes.
We, the narrator and characters, do not have any problem with this.
No. Yeah, this centers around just very broad overview because we haven't done our summaries yet. This centers around three people from India, one of whom, Mr. Tilak, he goes back and forth between India and America. He's an importer. There is a boy who may have been kidnapped and brought here under not his own power. And there's a man who is not a good person. The child is being abused because that's their culture. Is what they're saying. We will go more into it, but that's just how it starts. This is almost all of this is in chapter 1. And so I read chapter 1 a couple days ago. I was like, okay, yay, I love Nancy Drew. And I had to put it down for a couple days before I could come back to it and be like, okay, I'm ready to take notes. Obviously, it would be worse if I was reading this, just picked it up off the shelf and I was from India. Like, I think this would hurt a lot to just encounter in the wild.
Yes, and with that being said, if this book does not sound like it's your cup of tea, you can skip this episode.
We will try to find good things to pull out of this book, and we will, of course, have some good resources in the show notes. We're going to try to make this not a bummer episode. However, It was not the most fun book in the world.
I do have the Wikipedia page up for this book, and 1974 says the version is similar to the original text. Some character names are updated or altered. Koya was renamed Rishi, and Miss Allison becomes Mrs. Allison.
Okay,
the plot is largely a condensed, modernized version of the previous edition.
I will say, when they brought up things like Urdu and Hindi and different elements of Indian mythology, that all seemed to track with what I know from hanging out with people from India and what I looked up. But there were definitely moments where they talked about how people in India don't understand modern sanitation. And things like that.
To be clear, they do say some parts.
Yes.
Which does not actually help. But
they translate the Hindi. They don't say, wow, he is speaking some mysterious foreign tongue. But then they do have elements of mysticism being treated as, well, also by a woman who's clearly not well. A white woman spends a lot of time going into trances.
We'll go more into her later.
Yeah, reading Sanskrit aloud because maybe it helps her know the future, question mark. And then she doesn't remember anything she said when she leaves the trance. But then, they do talk about, hey, Sanskrit poetry is beautiful, and this isn't what Indian mysticism is. And they talk about actual people from India when they say Indian this time, which is a change from the last book. So given the very low bar, they do clear it in some way. I don't know.
Acrostic. Abridgment creation regarding our summary to inform co-host.
So this week we have written an acrostic poem summary. An acrostic poem has the letters of the subject in a vertical line, and then you use that vertical line to start your first horizontal line. And so I know Colleen and I usually approach our acrostic a little bit differently. And I think last time you went first. So I think I will go first this time.
Let's go.
I don't know if this is my best acrostic poem, but I also don't know if this is the best Nancy Drew book. So it fits. We are using the words Ivory Charm. And so I have, in vaguely offensive reading, your characters help abort Rishi's murder.
Very good. Kind of a metatextual poem.
It is a little
I love
bit.
that. It's beautiful.
It's got the important things, I think, in it.
It for sure does. Fantastic. I have Indian youth vanishes but is found over and over. Rishi is secretly, the child of a politician, Nancy. Helps by doing crime. Arson and appropriation happen. Rai is put in jail and Mr. Tilak is reunited with his son.
That was really good.
Thank you. Yours is so straightforward because it's one per line. I'm going to probably have to photograph mine and put them up with it or write it out nicer and then photograph it because, especially with some of the punctuation in the middle of a sentence. Now, could I write it better? Yes. Did I? No. So, there we go.
It works. It works. All right.
30-second recap.
It is now time for our 30-second recap, where we do our best to summarize this book in 30 seconds. And since I read my poem first, I think you get to do your 30 seconds first.
I sure get to. All right, count me in.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
We meet Rishi. He's a circus performer. He is friends with an elephant, and he gets hit by Rai, who is a guy at the circus, and then he steals away in Nancy's trunk and hangs out at the Drews' house and then gets kidnapped over and over, and they find an empty house with no floor and a lot of trapeze artist equipment and some secret passageways, and there's a white lady with 2 first names instead of a first name and a last name, and she did some political scheming and now has a bunch of jewels and a turban, and then a professor gets knocked out, and then the Ivory Charm has stuff in it. Oh,
all right.
Yeah, the mystery had a lot more going on this time than last time.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm going to say. I'm just going to start my 30 seconds and start talking and see what happens. So
that's always been my strategy.
Yeah, mine as well.
3, 2, 1, go.
Rishi is a circus performer, like Colleen said, and he hides away and goes to Nancy's house and loves living there. And they start investigating to figure out about his background. And it turns out he is the kidnapped son of a Indian leader, the Maharaja, and they thought he was dead and eaten by a tiger and his mom died of a broken heart, but he's not. He's alive and being abused in the United States instead.
Time.
I don't think I gave any extra information.
You did a lot more about his background because I forgot that, they did actually start looking into that. It was while that was happening that they also were visiting a house and falling down it, and everyone was getting hurt in quick succession, like one at a time in this house.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I definitely
am.
We're going to talk about that in Wound Watch because it was crazy.
Oh my God.
Cliffhanger.
So I have 2 that I'd like to discuss.
Okay.
Both are good.
All right. Mine requires a couple extra sentences because the one sentence isn't really good enough for a cliffhanger, but it adds the context. It is the end of chapter 16. Nancy has been eavesdropping on a conversation and then accuses Anita Allison, who has 2 first names, of the crimes that she did do. And this old professor is also there. And then a phone call comes. And so the professor has Nancy answer the phone, and it's her dad. And in a peak dad move, he goes, "Oh, I really shouldn't have bothered you. I merely phoned to learn if you're safe. Since you left, I've been worried. By the way, Ned was here looking for you." She goes, I'm all right, Dad. Everything's going great. Only I can't take time to tell you about it now. I'll call you back in a few minutes. Nancy cradled the phone and returned to the library. She paused in the doorway to stare in horror. Professor Stackpole lay stretched out on the floor unconscious. His head was bleeding from a deep wound. Mrs. Allison had disappeared. So, yes, I know that was like a whole paragraph, but...
No, because you need the context as well.
You do.
Which, in this scene... Professor Stackpole was the witness to Nancy pretending to be psychic and telling Miss Allison about the crimes that she knew she did, which involved assisting in kidnapping infant Rishi, making a story that he was eaten by a tiger so that she could
happens all the time.
Destabilize the government in an area of India that they won't mention because
they won't mention
they just can't pronounce it.
Yeah, that's fun.
It also means that we also have a suspension of disbelief. We don't have to say an actual region of India.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because they also won't mention what month it is.
Correct.
So I'm fine with this. They're like, it's the 20th of this month. I'm like, okay, great. Fantastic.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what month. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what part of India it is. But yeah, she like helped destabilize this area in order to help
this man, Yamatogara, to be put into power.
Yes, as the governor?
Yeah. Yamatogara is now the governor because of Anita Allison, and she got a bunch of treasure for doing this. But Rishi and his dad are the rightful rulers because they're Maharaja.
Yeah,
I believe.
By blood right.
Yes. And so now that Rishi is, quote, like dead of tiger eating, and the mom died of broken heart, the dad, Mr. Tilak, like just started being an importer and lives part-time in America, part-time in India, and I guess gave up his right to be
assumedly. That's definitely the implication.
Yeah, that was what I got as well, unless it was like only Rishi that was allowed to be in charge, but also he's a child. So, but yeah, I employed Rai to kidnap the boy so that Yamatogara might be put in power. I did it for India. No specific part of it though.
Nope, the entire country / tectonic plate.
I just love that in this cliffhanger, Nancy's like, everything's totally fine. And she goes back, she's like, everything was not fine. It's like in Community when he comes back with the pizzas.
Yes. Oh
and
my gosh.
Everything's
exactly
on fire
like
and
that.
Everyone's dead.
Yes. Okay, so the end of the penultimate chapter of most Nancy Drew books is usually pretty exciting. This one I thought was particularly exciting. But I wanted to talk more about my favorite part of the book, which is when they're exploring this house.
Yeah.
And I say it's my favorite because I enjoy a good horror movie. And this had such horror movie vibes where they are one at a time jumping into a window to go explore a house that is pitch black.
Yes. So like Rishi goes in just for curiosity and then he doesn't come out.
Yep.
So then
Nancy
goes in.
And she doesn't come out.
Yeah.
And then George goes in.
Uh-huh.
And then she doesn't go out.
And Bess is like, well, crap.
Yeah, but poor Bess is alone. And so
she tries to drive for help. She's like, well, I'm not going in. No one came out of there.
And then crashes the car and then comes back.
Does crash the car.
Crashes the car, comes back. Is like, oh no, that didn't work. Sees Nancy come out of a rock. What it turns out is a secret passageway through a one-way door through a rock. And she's like, oh my gosh, there you are. And Nancy is all beat up, and we'll talk more about that in Wound Watch. But she's like, oh, and you have George with you too? She's like, no.
Is George in here? Oh my God.
Did George go in?
I thought she was with you.
So that, then they go back to the house, they hear something, and the sentence says, no, I heard something. The sentence was never finished. From inside the house came a terrific crash, accompanied by the sound of glass splintering against a hard metallic surface. Then silence.
Oh, it was so freaky.
And I was like...
Because we just watched them, like, George was like, if she doesn't come back in 10 minutes, I'll go in. And then Bess is like, I don't know what I'm going to do then.
Oh, yeah, Bess is like, I am not going in. Like,
well, she's smart. She's like,
do.
Clearly they've been held captive. Like, she has the experience. She's like, no, something is going wrong. This is not as planned. I will simply not become a fourth victim to this.
But it turns out George had been trying to climb back up, I think, and ended up slipping and falling and crashing. Or she grabbed a mirror on the wall.
Why was that there?
Why was that there? So the mirror came down. She fell into, like, assumedly, like, the basement because there is no floor. Like he says, like, it's a house with no insides. All it has is ropes and a staircase and secret passageways, and that is all this property is.
Yes, the broken English, quote unquote, of the child Rishi, which I believe that phrase in itself is a little questionable and not necessarily how one talks if one is learning a second or third language.
Oh, that's definitely on my miscellaneous mysteries.
Yes, but I will say it is hard to get some concepts across, such as a house with no floor. Like, I was talking to a kiddo and he was trying to explain earthquake. He wanted me to spell the word earthquake so he could look it up on the encyclopedia, and already hard to spell, but he's like, and trying to describe like the floor moves, like the ground moves, and that's not, I'm not learning that first and foremost in English. I'm learning like bathroom and like please and numbers, and I didn't learn, hey, the ground moves, let alone earthquake. So he got it across through some very good acting it out, and then I learned the word in Portuguese. But I was like, oh my god, yeah, that is hard to get across. I understand why that was frustrating.
Yes,
I'm sorry for not knowing your language. Like, he's like frustrated. I'm like, well, that sucks. And I was like, I was about to get at the translator app, but he was like, no, I want to try. I'm like, okay.
So yeah, that's how Rishi describes it, is a house with no insides.
Bess is like, that's nothing.
It does seem to be a fairly accurate description based on the other descriptions by the girls. But yeah, so George falls assumedly into almost like the foundation of the house with a mirror, shatters everywhere.
Wait, was the mirror there to like, okay, think about like a dance studio.
I think that's what makes the most sense to me, honestly. Yeah.
I was thinking just like a random bathroom mirror or something. But.
Yeah, for background on this house, it gives a surprisingly little explanation for this house. It is a former trapeze artist training, acrobatics.
Yeah, like an acrobatics area.
Yes,
not affiliated with the characters we already know.
Exactly. That's why I was like, wait, what? So it has nothing to do with the circus or animal show that Rishi and Rai work for. It just is there separately, and Mrs. Allison owns it. But she didn't make it this way. It was this way when she bought it.
Yeah, and she's trying to sell this and get money because the city of River Heights wants to build a golf course on her, like, rolling hills or something like that.
Yeah, the explanation of why it exists was very odd.
Yes. Surely we would have known about this already, but when, Nancy drives her, she's like, we're going somewhere completely new, and the girls are like, what is this? And that was within city limits the whole time. That's crazy.
So, odd explanation, but definitely lent itself to some spooky exploration, which I did enjoy.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very weird. Real quick, can I go through my shorter list of weird names?
Yes.
Got Anita Allison, Professor Lowell Stackpole, Helen Heyman, which is just spelled hey, man, Pete Putnam, Stanley Strong, like these all have to be alliterative for some reason, Mrs. Winter, Jasper Bat, sometimes called Old Batty, which he introduced himself as, so he seems fine with it, and Steve Roach. Just some great side character names.
Great names.
Ship of the Week.
Mine is everyone in modern psychiatric care.
Yes.
Because whether it is, stuff from the past where Rishi doesn't know a lot about his past, but the more he finds out, it's all like very tragic. And he's taking it in stride, but I feel like it's going to hit him later, as it typically does with people in general, but especially kiddos.
Yeah, with childhood trauma.
Oh, God. But then also there's Anita Allison, who's like, has embraced this mysticism to a point where it seems
like she's having breaks with reality.
Yes, she is. Thank you. She is saying that she doesn't remember things she said while she's, wearing this turban and in this trance and reciting Sanskrit things. And it's unclear how much of that is a facade and a show, but either way, she is presenting as though she does not remember certain things, such as like what she was talking about a moment ago, even if they're in the middle of an active, physically dangerous situation, such as the house with no insides collapsing due to fire damage. Jasper Bat was maybe hit on the head, and that's what makes him, quote, weird. Or maybe he's just like that because, again, they call him Old Batty and that's how he introduces himself. But he's accusing everybody he sees of having wronged him.
Definitely got some like paranoid delusions.
Yes, like he has been stolen from. However, yeah, everyone that we meet in this book, I just want them to have modern psychiatric care where they can either talk it out or if they need medication, like something, because no one's having a good time in this book.
No, agreed. That's a good one.
Thank you.
I would like to take my ship of the week to, I guess, offer a little bit of relationship advice for our favorites, Ned and Nancy.
Yes.
And maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic with saying that they need relationship advice because no relationship is perfect, because no people are perfect.
Sure.
So, for some backstory, Ned is in the second half of the book, maybe last third of the book. Nancy goes to a fraternity party that seems very well organized and very tame compared to my understanding of fraternity parties. But Nancy goes to a fraternity party at Ned's college, and she meets a college-age boy from India named Anil, who I think is like an exchange student of some sort. But he, one, is interested in the ivory charm that Nancy is wearing.
Everyone is. Everyone sees her and is like,
Everyone is
"Whoa."
interested in it. And it's because also, in addition to wearing this very interesting necklace, she is so attractive.
It's true.
And so she is getting hit on a lot by pretty much every boy at the party.
I think she dances with everyone.
She dances with everyone, and Ned originally is like, oh, that's what I get for bringing the prettiest girl. And then Anil gets involved. And Nancy is very interested in talking to him as well, mostly because of the mystery.
And in fact, Ned told her that. Like, she
Yes.
almost didn't want to come to the the fraternity party. It does sound much more mature this way because she was like, I could be solving the mystery. And he's like, but there's this guy from India here, and I think he knows some stuff about your mystery. And she goes, all right, I'll go to the party. So this is Ned's fault, really.
It is. And in the last book, we also had some like jealousy issues, but not from Ned.
Yes.
He felt pretty secure. This is the first time I feel like he's started to get like uncomfortable with the attention that Nancy was getting, even though he put her in this situation. And I guess my advice is just, I don't even know what it is.
I mean, just be more secure in your relationship
Yeah,
or
and
talk
that's
about
exactly
it not
what it
at the
is.
party, right? Like, talk about it ahead of time or afterward, or if this is a recurring issue, maybe after the party. But if you're like, oh, ahead of time, I'm like, hey, sometimes I don't get enough attention from you. And, it's my fraternity and I was hoping to spend time with you. That's why I invited you.
Yes. And normally we see Ned knowing Nancy so well. And obviously he still does. He invited her and encouraged her because something relevant to the mystery is here. And I would just hope that he would have more confidence in his relationship with Nancy and all that they've been through to know that she doesn't really have eyes for anybody else. Even if she's interested in talking to someone, of course it's for the mystery. Mystery comes first and foremost, even above Ned.
Yes. I also saw it's not the same. It is still a relationship, but it is, of course, a friendship relationship. But George and Bess also seemed like fooled by Nancy having a conversation with someone. She was talking to Anita Allison about mysticism and various elements of Indian mythology to try to get information out of her and try to figure out what Anita's deal is and what's going on with the mystery. And George and Bess get bored. They're like, I didn't know she was into this like psychic mumbo jumbo. I gotta go explore a house with no floor or something. Like, this is boring. And like, you're allowed to be bored, but it seemed weird that they were like, wow, I can't believe she converted. That's weird.
I don't want to make any assumptions about the characters, except I do, because that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm doing this podcast with you. I do wonder if, because we've seen most of these other cultures in the Nancy Drew revised books in more of secondary context, where they're reading about something or they're finding artifacts from something. This is the first time we've seen like a true foreign culture represented. And I wonder if Ned's discomfort with that, Bess and George's discomfort with that, is coloring their usual assumptions about Nancy. Ned usually has no problem with Nancy talking to
Even other
people.
guys.
Other guys.
Even at a frat party. Like, at one point she was talking about the postal system with somebody.
Yes. So, like, is it because this is, a more, I don't want to use the word exotic, but like,
right, but they would have at the time.
Yeah, from their perspective, something more of that
out of their
context
ordinary circle of people that they encounter, I guess.
Yes. And so, and obviously, like when, Nancy's talking about like this Indian mysticism and mythology with Mrs. Allison is a white lady, just a white lady. But we're talking about these cultures that Ned, Bess, George don't have really any experience with at all. And I just wonder if that adds to their misunderstandings in these circumstances.
I wonder, because I was just like, everyone is out of character a little bit from what I expect in this book, but I was like, either that's a this writer situation or perhaps it's just the circumstances of this experience.
Cooking corner.
There were a lot of referenced meals with not any description, which was disappointing.
Yes. Although Hannah makes special griddle cakes with orange juice. And I was going to ask you, do you know, is that the same as a pancake or a Johnny cake or?
I would assume so, that a griddle cake, it's something made on a griddle. And I mean, that's
Yes.
a pancake is the most
Made in a
basic
pan?
cake made in a pan.
Griddle cakes have a thicker, more substantial bite compared to the softness of pancakes. But a pancake
Okay.
is also known as a hot cake, griddle cake, or flapjack. Typically, it's
Okay.
like a less baking powder situation. But that sounds great. And that's like right after Rishi gets new clothes and he goes, now I'm an American boy. He says it less grammatically than that. But then they sit down and have this very quote-unquote American breakfast. Although I will say his first night there at the Drews household, during dinner, the young visitor became very quiet and picked at his food. Hannah was afraid he did not like her cooking. But Nancy and her father thought the boy's loss of appetite was a reaction to his exciting day. Exciting in a negative sense. I think both could be true, though, especially if you prefer Indian food and then you are hit with griddle cakes and orange juice. I mean, that's not the meal they're having right then, but just, hey, it's not the same. It's not the same
Yes.
food at all. Question about food for monkeys. On page 3, they want to feed the elephants, and Vess wants to feed the monkeys, and George is like, yeah, they can't. She says, I understand it's against the rules to feed the monkeys. I guess in the jungle, it's all right for them to eat the nuts raw, but here's ours are too well. And she never finished the sentence because then there's a runaway elephant. It's a whole thing. There's a lot of not finishing sentences.
There is.
What,
I assume
what's wrong with our...
salted? Boiled?
Okay, I was like, processed? I don't even know.
Yeah,
so
I
valid.
would not want to feed monkeys overly salted foods, which
That's true.
obviously I don't want to feed those to the elephants either.
Yeah, but maybe they're just bigger, so everything's going to affect them a little bit less proportionally.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because there's a cultural expectation that you feed peanuts to elephants.
Yeah, sure. One of the times that Rishi gets home and is wounded, Hannah helps the boy to bed and gives him some hot broth, which I think is much nicer than unflavored gelatin or cake when one asks for crackers, which are previous things one is given when wounded or sick.
But we have given broth many a time as well.
That's true. Hannah serves tea and cakes to Professor Stackpole. So it's like fully like a tea time. Ned brings up this professor that might teach Rishi, and this professor knows various languages from India, etc. And Nancy goes, I think I've heard that name. And Ned goes, of course you have. He's like this famous professor. I'm like, nobody knows famous professors' names. I'm sorry.
don't.
I wish, but no. Hannah burns the bacon at some point while they're reading about a fire in the newspaper, and that's all Mr. Drew says. He goes, speaking of fires, I think I smell something burning now. And he doesn't do anything to help. He's like, dang.
He's like, hey, Hannah, something's on fire. Can you go check that out?
Exactly. It's fantastic.
Yep. Otherwise, they eat a lot of popcorn and peanuts since they go to the circus or
Constantly at the circus.
The wild animal
it's,
show.
It's giving circus. I
It
mean, there's
is.
like acrobats and the elephants stand on each other and stuff. It's a whole thing. You know how elephants are always doing that. Can they do that? They certainly do not do it in the wild. Can they do that? I'm thinking about their knees and how much climbing it would take for one elephant to get on top of another. That's not my business, I guess. That's all I had.
A fairly light cooking corner this week.
Yes, but I like the little tea and cakes. Fashion police. Here's a good one before we get into some bad ones. Nancy's strawberry blonde hair vividly contrasted her teal blue convertible. You were wondering if the new car is blue.
I thought the same thing. I was like, all right, it was the same shade of blue, just a better car?
I guess. And I'm always thinking before I get in my car, does my outfit or hair contrast it vividly? If not, I
Gotta
better
go
change
back in.
either the hair or the car.
So I feel like we didn't get a lot of details about what our main characters were wearing
Yes,
at all. We didn't have
I
as
agree.
many outfit changes, even though we
Yeah.
did have some getting muddy. They just stated those outfits, I
We
guess.
just kept it on. Mrs. Allison is described as a tall, willowy woman in her 50s with lots of blonde hair. Not long hair, not
Just
thick hair, not curly hair. There's just a lot of it. I don't know what that means. But yeah, no, I know nothing about what George and Nancy wore, and Beth also.
Yes. I feel like, though, we can't move past
Yeah.
this segment without talking about the cultural appropriation.
Hmm.
So we are first introduced to both Rai and Rishi at the Wild Animal Show, and they are both wearing what I think many people would consider like stereotypical Indian garb
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, white pants and a turban with a jewel on it. And
I've definitely seen that in a lot of cartoons. I'm thinking Johnny
yes,
Quest. He has his
yes.
friend Haji Singh, and he's got the turban with the jewel. And
I feel like we see it a lot in especially like American cartoons and
yes,
just
American portrayals of India.
yes. And I feel like even just describing it, people have in their head exactly
Mm-hmm.
what we are talking about.
It's not that turbans are not actually worn.
Correct.
It's usually by like Sikh men. Yeah, sometimes like people from the Hindu faith or like Muslims will wear a turban, but it is typically seen as part of Sikh culture.
Yes. And so
Or
that's
the
exactly, it's
Sikh
called
religion.
dastar. Apparently, it's a word that's loaned from Persian
Ooh.
through Punjabi. So the dastar, also known as pagri, is a turban worn by the Sikh community of India. It's a symbol of faith, representing values such as valor, honor, and spirituality. It's worn to protect the Sikhs' long, uncut hair.
Yes, I did know this. So it's not that they're not worn in India. They're not worn by every single man in India. This is a religious thing. This is not a country thing. And he could be Sikh. However, the fact that we have this image that we can pull to mind of a guy in a long flowing, I think they call it a gown in this, a long flowing garment, and it's got a jewel in it, which I don't think is common. And it's usually the jewel has a magical power. And the way that this has been portrayed by white people is not correct or helpful in any way.
There's many different types of head coverings and things of that nature in Indian culture, and usually determined by religion or region, because India is a large country.
Correct. And a very, very populated country.
A very populated country with a very complex history.
Yes.
And a lot of very different regions. And I will be 100% honest, I don't know a ton about India and about Indian culture or the variety of different Indian cultures that exist within this one country.
Yes, this is going to be some of the stuff that's in the show notes, but I'm also specifically looking at, there's a feta, which is the Marathi name for a turban worn in like Maharashtra, India, and this is more of specifically at a religious celebration, like a wedding or a just, this is something you're going to wear for an event, not an all the time thing. So that's very cool. Or like you might give a male dignitary this to wear. It's also interesting to me because I have a lot of hijabi friends, and especially in college, and that is a thing that you like wind on and around your head as opposed to just like plop it on already done, which is I think what they're doing with the turban here. It's a plop it on your head already done thing. That's Anita takes it off and Nancy puts it right on.
And also just another word, pagri, turban. That's the general word for it. It specifically refers to a headdress that is worn by men and women, which needs to be manually tied.
Yes. Excellent. There's lots of local variants. There's different colors for different events. They can indicate a social class, caste, region, and occasion. So like, and I'm noticing that none of these have giant jewels in the middle, especially not glowing with powers. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just very reductive. This is, like we said, one of the first times we're seeing people of another culture portrayed, and it's not great. So that was disappointing. But I would say, seeing Rishi and Rai within this context at a circus performing, I know you probably don't get an opportunity to choose the costumes that you are wearing in these circumstances as much. But obviously the biggest issue is Anita Allison.
Because she has chosen this. This is not part of her like work uniform or perform. I mean, it's a performance for like the professor.
Yes, and Nancy.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is the worst perpetrator of this.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing. And it is disappointing to see Nancy
immediately glom on to, oh, I could do that too.
Yes. And I mean, I know that there is an element of her
like using it to manipulate Anita Allison, which in a place where
who has
she
been
knows she'll
using
be
it to manipulate situations and people, and in a way like showing just how ridiculous it is to imply that wearing this turban is going to give her psychic powers. But it feels Icky.
Instead, it was crime that gave her the psychic powers because she stole some documents.
The stolen documents that she read all of and learned all the sordid details of.
Exactly. Like someone else stole them first. However, she did steal them and keep them, and they are not her documents. That's what made her psychic.
Yes. Definitely not Nancy's best move.
Yeah.
Picture perfect.
So this one it is a yellow one. It's not one of the purple 2-in-1 ones, but it is an older, like less plasticky. I don't know. I'll have a picture of it. But basically, the cover has Nancy staring right at the camera in a very arresting gaze. We see the ivory charm around her neck, and then we also see a larger view of the ivory charm kind of like dangling in the foreground. And then in the background, like surrounded by shadows is, I guess, Rye? Because Rishi doesn't wear the turban, right?
I assume.
But first of all, my spouse read this as, oh no, white man in a turban. So that's good. I don't know if that's just a coloring or a fading issue, or we just don't know how to draw people from India or what. But also the eyes are completely like pits of darkness. So that's great. Love that, especially for the person of color on the front cover. Let's just make him a mysterious pit of darkness.
The last few covers have been like, we go from like Shadow Ranch and the Lilac Inn, which have these
engaging,
beautiful
in media res scenes.
Yes, and I love those covers so much. To go in these more vague directions, I'm not loving the like foreground, background, multiple things all happening, like the message in the hollow oak. But we're starting to see, if you remember when we talked about the history, like these are Rudy Nappi, maybe pronounced Nappi, where his wife describes what the story is about, and he illustrates it based on vibes.
It's like a game of telephone. It's not good. This is where, like, on Larkspur Lane, he just got the scene completely wrong. And it was in media res, but it was the wrong media and the wrong res.
Yes. And so along that note, which we do also know from the history episode, that the line art within the pages of the book are not credited to any artists. They're different book to book. These ones were really weak.
I really liked Bess. I didn't understand why she looked like that. She's really cute. It was while she was busy crashing the car.
I think, like, also, I was disappointed. So, there's normally like a picture at the beginning. Usually it is its own picture that is not featured in the pages of the book. It is its own separate illustration. We just use the same one that is also in the middle. First of all, I'm just going to be honest. These illustrations in this one feel kind of lazy. The line art is not nearly as detailed. Also, because I thought this was
a lesbian, but it is a little boy.
Yes, that's not George. Sorry.
That's not George. It's just a boy that they never draw looking childlike, which is not good.
Yeah. Another interesting thing when portraying other cultures.
Especially like thinking about how Black boys have to grow up really fast because everyone's going to read them as a scary man very early.
Exactly.
Ugh.
I also always am interested in the pairing of the in-text illustration with the caption underneath it. And my favorite is the one where they are at the circus and little Tommy, the neighbor boy that they brought with them to the circus for fun and is never mentioned again after this circus adventure.
Does he not lend them clothes, or is that a different one?
Nope, that's a different one.
Great.
Because this boy is like 6. And
that's true.
So Arun the elephant got loose and little Tommy decided to try and climb on the trunk.
Because he saw a boy climbing on an elephant like 2 pages earlier.
True. And we do work with 6-year-olds, and that does track. That does track. But he gets lifted up by the elephant on the trunk. And so in this illustration, little Tommy is lifted up above the elephant's head. He is looking at the illustrator, assuming like, oh no! Yeah. Everyone in the background is running. There's some like scribbly people back there too. And then Nancy is standing under there with her arms up, and it just says, "I'll catch you," Nancy offered. And the offered is the word that really got me. I'm like, I feel like there's a better word we could have used.
No. Take it or leave it.
I'll catch you or not. It's okay. Like, whichever you want.
I didn't really think about that. That's great.
So yeah, that one was my favorite.
I love that. My favorite is when Nancy's stealing some stolen papers. She's just, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 3 rights make a left. Anyway, so Nancy is bending over to pick up some papers that were in a coffee pot and have fallen over helpfully in front of her. And it looks like maybe she threw out her back recently or something. She is doing some sort of Pilates move. I don't know what's happening, but she is bending over the weirdest anyone's ever bent. Maybe she's trying to make sure her pants don't fall down. There's something happening here. And I know I've bent over like this before, but it was under duress. Especially to be like quickly stealing something while the homeowner's distracted.
It does look like her pants are too tight.
Maybe that's it. Because yeah, she's in a pose. I don't know what the pose is.
But she's got a really good straight back, really good, form on that because,
Oh,
you
yeah.
lift with your legs, not with your back.
It's a piece of paper. You don't have to worry about what you're lifting it with. Incredible. I was just like, girl, what's happening here? And then it was like, I'm stealing a paper. Okay.
Blast from the past.
Can we talk about the frat party?
Definitely.
It's
Fraternity
so
party.
Fun. The fraternity party. It's like a whole weekend event where 20 girls stay in a dorm. Do you remember, like, she came before and she stayed in the frat and we were like, what's going on with that? She, like, gets a roommate for the weekend and I flagged it with accidentally gay just in case because I love when there's a randomly assigned roommate. Because I was at a wedding of 2 randomly assigned roommates.
Amazing.
When Nancy arrived in her car at the fraternity house, 20 girls were already there. After meeting Mrs. Howard, a pleasant, motherly woman who was the housekeeper, she was introduced to her roommate. Helen Heyman was a shy, timid girl. She confessed she had never attended such a party. I'm so scared I'll do something wrong. Don't worry, you'll love it, Nancy assured her. So already loved that. She was like giving her advice. The following day, the girls were rushed from one activity to another. Nancy met so many new students that she could not remember the names of half of them. So there's like daytime things along with dance in the evening where people are wearing evening wear. And this is when she's hanging out with Anil and Ned gets jealous. But like there's daytime stuff and then there's a formal party in the chapter house and there's dances and then like it's a whole weekend's worth of stuff to the point that they were assigned roommates. This is just not what I was expecting. Even knowing that she has been to a frat party and stayed overnight in the frat house in the girls' room before. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And it actually sounds lovely.
It's really nice. I like the activity. It's probably not this, but it seems like one of the weekends where you're touring the campus and you're a prospective student.
Yes.
It's probably not that, but I don't know. The fact that she was meeting all these students and there were activities and there was a schedule and there was a roommate, it was very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I also love, so the Ivory Charm they talk about, it has the power of life and death. And what that means is it could have a poison in it and it could have a strong antidote in it. And I love that stuff where it's like, yeah, it has the power of this. And then immediately Nancy says, this is at the very end when Rishi has been kidnapped again and has been poisoned, I believe. Here is the Ivory Charm from your family. Does it have any magical powers? Yes, he replied. It contains a special antidote against various harmful drugs. He's like, it's not powers. It's just science also. And I love that combo.
I do too. No, that's great. When they find out the backstory of Rishi and how he was kidnapped, they had a story that he was eaten by a lion and
a tiger.
Sorry, he was eaten by a tiger. And Bess says, how dreadful. And George says, it sounds fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
George declared. I know that, the root word of fantastic is fantasy. What George means is that sounds made up. That sounds not real. But based on our modern use of fantastic, it does sound like George is into this story and thinks this is great.
Tell me more about this kid that got eaten by a tiger or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
I think that's very funny.
One other thing I would like to discuss is when they are in the crazy house with all of its acrobatic ropes everywhere, which also does not make sense to me. I understand that they've been practicing. Like, is it what's left over from the safety net? Because there's all these interconnected ropes. I don't know. And there's no answer to this. Rishi is found unconscious in the ropes. With no explanation of did he pass out and just laying on the ropes? Did he get tangled in them and is
That's what I thought,
upside down?
They thought he strangled himself and I think he got in the ropes weird because it's a falling apart place. Even if it was set up infrastructurally for acrobatics practice, it doesn't seem good anymore.
Yes.
Because the house is falling apart, to quote Anna Sun.
Yeah, so Nancy grabs him and they look for a medical kit. They find one and then they use stimulants on him.
Yeah.
And I did fall down the Wikipedia rabbit hole into the amphetamines because that's what stimulants are, though also caffeine is considered a
I was
stimulant
going to
as
say,
well.
as
But like,
someone with ADHD, I take a stimulant every morning. It is just
yes,
my medication. However, it sounds weird out of context. We
it
used
does. And
stimulants on him.
is it a shot of adrenaline? Like, do they just have to shoot him up and they're like, oh, he's better now?
Yeah, I mean, like an EpiPen can help.
But I will say, apparently during the late 1800s into the 60s, stimulants were recommended for all sorts of different things and given to soldiers during World War II to keep them
yeah, I
awake.
bet.
And then, oh no, people can get addicted to them.
What?
And so it wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s that they started to put restrictions in place for these things, which we know that this revision was written in 1974. But yeah, just that's not something I would see in a modern medical kit, nor would I feel comfortable administering that to a 12-year-old child. So it
you're a
also
big
does not
baby.
tell us
No.
how this is administered. If it's
They give him stimulants. What's not clear? Nancy goes, as soon as we reach home, you're going straight to bed and maybe have a doctor, which is just very
Maybe.
silly phrasing.
Nah, he's fine.
Have a doctor. Not we're going to
And
call him.
this is also, that's twice in this book that they do not call a doctor when they definitely should, because when the professor gets knocked out, as described by you during the cliffhanger, they're like, we're calling a doctor. He's like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to go to bed. I'm like, friend, you have a head injury.
And you're like old.
Yeah, you can't just go to bed about it.
Plus, you're a famous professor. Everyone knows your name.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
is the norm with famous professors. I don't know if this is just this professor or if this is education from the past. First of all, they get this professor as a tutor for Rishi. I have like 3 things in a row about this. Hannah thinks, oh yeah, we should get him a tutor so he can like be learning either English or just in general because, you know, he's a school-age kid. We got to take care of him. And Carson's like, I absolutely approve. You just do the legwork and I'll sign off on it. I'm like, well, hold on. She came up with the idea and I'm sure she'd be happy to find someone. And in fact, Ned finds the person actually, which is Professor Stackpole. But it's weird that he's like, yeah, head wavy. You go ahead and do all that. Very, very kindly, the professor charges a very low rate, even though he's a famous professor, so he can charge whatever he wants. He named a sum so low that Nancy felt inclined to protest. But the professor does say his English may be faulty, but in his native Hindi, he speaks with poetic beauty, which seems like it could be a compliment, except for maybe his English is faulty. Hey, do you know how much Hindi I have? None. I have none Hindi. So it's very impressive that he is able to be understood
In 2 languages.
Yeah, in multiple languages, and even describing concepts such as the house has no insides, which is a fascinating concept to try to get across in any language at all, let alone not your native one. And then, so he comes by, he like Rishi will be practicing his lessons at home. After dropping Bess and George at a supermarket, Nancy hurried home. This was Professor Stackpole's afternoon to tutor Rishi, as she wanted to talk to the distinguished man before he left the house. And he's like leaving as she gets there. She goes, our lessons over so soon? Yes, it did not take me long to hear them. Rishi is a brilliant student. So his lessons just like he gives him homework and the boy recites them and then the professor leaves? Because that's what I'm getting out of this.
And both you and I have both been tutors. And so this doesn't align with what
like there is some
tutoring.
at-home practice, but it's not only that. Otherwise, you could just practice at home. I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of cheap prices, when they go to Pete Putnam and Nancy tries to see if he happens to have these papers that old Batty's been complaining about missing and accusing every single person who approaches the property of having stolen.
Right.
She offers some money. She's like, oh, well, if you have them, I'll pay. And he's like, how much we talking? And she's like, $25. And that gives him pause. She's like, yeah, I knew it. That's great for this poor farmer man.
She's like, I definitely thought $25 would seem like a lot to him. I'm like, that's nice.
Any implication that $25 is a lot of money, I want that. I want that time.
Seriously.
I think the other thing we have to talk about with Blast from the Past is the way we talk about India during this time period.
In the same book, little Tommy is doing Indian war whoops.
Yes. That is
my
on my
God.
notes. And so I cannot believe that for hundreds of years, we used the same words to describe 2 very, very different sets of people. It's just crazy. I mean, and I feel like we've already talked about this topic in a variety of other different contexts, but just the difference in what was acceptable and what is not. And then if this is the revised version.
Oh my God, yeah.
Versus
but like
the
when
original.
they're describing parts of India, they are saying, yes, there are some social abuses. The caste system is not great. Like, there are things that are unfortunately still true, but they're kind of treating it as, they even do say exotic at one point. They're like, wow, he's wearing such exotic looking garb.
Yes,
like the
they
first
also
chapter.
refer to the people in India while discussing like their culture. They call them the natives.
Yeah, that's
And-
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, yes, they are native to their own country, but I would like to also bring attention to what you mentioned earlier, that there is also an element within this of trying to represent the culture not as a negative only.
In fact, they translate the Hindi in the first chapter for us.
And I did look that up, and it was accurate as well.
Good, yay.
It was exactly correct.
It was "Be calm, friend" when Rishi's talking to Arun the elephant.
Yes. And so, and they are talking about the mythology and some of the beliefs, and like you said, like the different languages that exist within the India subcontinent in a way to teach the reader, like, India is so interesting. It has so many different languages in it, and there are different parts of it with different beliefs and things like that. And there are some outdated words used. For example, Siam, which is Thailand. Siam is an exonym, meaning a word that outsiders use to name a place. So that is the exonym versus the endonym. So what people call themselves versus what outsiders call them. Another example could be, we call the country Germany. That's the exonym. They call themselves Deutschland. That is the name of their country within their language. And those are very different. And the history of why is like really interesting. We won't go into that right now. But I do think that there was an attempt in this time period that this is written to be more respectful of the culture. And I get the impression that the original, which I did not read, so the 1930s version, was maybe
not as educational.
Yes, exactly. And so don't know for sure.
Urdu and all these different.
Yes. And so I do think that it could have been better, significantly better. But I get the feeling that there was probably an improvement from the original to the revised version.
Yes. They do call Rai. He went on to say that the man in charge of the elephants named Rai was a strange person. He's very secretive and thinks it is perfectly all right to disobey United States laws because he's an alien. And we just shouldn't call people that.
Yeah, it's not a great word. I do also want to point out there's a very small thing. So Mrs. Allison's book that she has, her fancy giant book, it says on it in English, Sanskrit, which feels like a cartoon because the word Sanskrit, for our listeners who might not be familiar, is the name of a classical language.
I wrote on my book Spanish. Now you know it's in Spanish.
Yes, it's the sacred language of Hinduism and classical Hindu philosophy. And so, it's just like writing the word Spanish on your book from
that
Mexico.
Is written in Spanish. It's not, to be clear, it's not like a dictionary. It is not about the language. It is simply in that language.
But is it though? Because she reads it.
And it's a translation.
And she can read it, and I'm pretty sure it's in English.
In my head, I just pictured it as having Sanskrit on one page and the English translation on the other. But it doesn't say that. So I just pictured that.
That could be a headcanon. And also, it seems that Mrs. Anita Allison
she's married
has spent a lot of time in India. So I am not sure she might be able to read.
But Nancy understands it.
Yes. Well, so maybe, but Nancy read her French note to everyone in the last book and translated it live in front of a studio audience. So maybe Mrs. Anita Allison can do that. But the cover in English saying Sanskrit was hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Not a great choice.
No, but it's pretty funny. Speaking of Mrs. Allison, do you remember about her mail? Nancy's trying to get her address to just kind of pin her down of we should talk. And Mrs. Allison's like, I'm busy. She's like, no, not right now. Just give me your address and I'll hit you up later, essentially. And Mrs. Allison and her companion exchanged swift glances, which were not lost on Nancy. I move about from place to place, the woman answered vaguely. But surely you have a postal address. There must be some way for me to communicate with you. Just write a letter in care of General Delivery, River Heights, Mrs. Allison said. Nancy was annoyed.
The post office will just find me.
I guess. Just based on vibes.
That's their job. They'll track me down when it's relevant.
Okay, great. Thank you. The post office loves you. Can you tell me about the banking scenario that occurs?
Where they find all of this treasure and Mr. Drew's like, I'll go put it in the bank for you. Which bank do you want? And she's like, huh?
Because she's like,
out
bank. Of it.
What bank? Do you want me to put all this like treasure that you just hysterically sobbed about and demanded we save? And she's like, I don't know. He's like, all right, I'm just going to go put it in a bank, I guess, for you.
Bank.
A bank. He's like, here you go. Here's all the receipts for the bank that I put this in. And she's like, thanks. And just wanders away with the papers.
Yes, he's like, I hope she doesn't lose the paper because I put her stuff in a random bank under her name so she can access it. Just a thing that I can do without.
And if she loses these papers, they are just going to stay at the bank forever.
And then later when they're like, oh, that stuff wasn't hers, even though she was hysterically sobbing about how they were hers and they needed rescued. Before people came to inspect her property after the fire, she's probably realizing, hey, they're gonna realize I have all this jewelry I shouldn't have. And so when they realize she's like a bad guy, he calls the bank, is like, actually, do not give it to her if she shows up. And they could just do that. Like, what's happening?
I know.
With the banking
crazy.
And the postal service in River Heights / maybe everywhere this time. Tiny thing, second sentence, Carson Drew is cradling the telephone. And I know it means he hung up the phone, but I did not. I was like, oh, little baby telephone. It's just a very
cradle.
He's cradling it. That's what that verb means. We've talked about key cases before, right? Because that's how, basically, this is how Rishi gets into the car. Bess gets this giant stuffed panda, and I was worried because it was a booth where stuffed wild animals were being sold, and I think it's a plushie, and I'm 95% sure it's a plushie. I'm not 100% sure that it's not a taxidermied panda.
Yeah. No,
I'm
I think
pretty
it's
sure. But you never know. And then Nick, actually, I don't want to carry this around all day, so that's hilarious because she bought it right at the beginning of the day. But she's like, how about I go put it in your trunk? Can I have your key? And she gets her key case out, I guess, instead of a key ring. Have we had this before?
I don't think we have.
It's weird. And then Tommy is like, well, I didn't want the panda to not have any air, so I didn't close the trunk all the way. And then Rishi's like, well, I noticed your trunk wasn't closed all the way, so I just put myself right in there. And it's kind of a little chain of events there.
Wound watch.
So, Nancy does sustain some injuries in this book. Yes. Nothing major. Not as bad as George falling through the inside-less house.
And with a mirror on top of her.
With a mirror with her.
Where Nancy hears a low moan and goes, George, is that you? And George goes, it's all that's left of me.
Oh,
which is
poor George.
So sad, but very funny.
So, Nancy herself, though, right before that scene, exits the secret passageway through the rock door and is covered in scratches. Her clothes are torn. She's covered in mud. It never tells us what actually happened to her.
I assume she just fell because there's no floor and they climbed in through the window.
I guess.
We don't know.
But that's also part of where I was like, this feels like a horror movie that she just shows up and looks like she's like beaten up by someone or something and run through the woods to escape something. And she's like, all right, where's George?
Yeah, no. Let's go back into what happened. She goes, I'm all right, but I've certainly had a strange experience. And then they're like, George, I thought she was with you. And she's like, she must be somewhere in that wild labyrinth, Nancy answered, looking troubled. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Her flashlight smashed when she fell. So she had one. She listened to herself from last time, the sleuthing skills, but then it did smash. So I think the new sleuthing skill is bring 2 flashlights.
I agree.
And don't fall on both of them.
Yeah. Keep one in a cushion.
Yes. But no knockout for Nancy. A billion kidnaps for Rishi, but not for Nancy.
For real. Also, in addition, after the arm scratches and torn clothing and everything, and, they've got George, they're, treating George's scratches and things, and Nancy massages her bruises. That sounds painful. Is that what you're supposed to do? Am I the crazy one? Should I be massaging my bruises?
I don't think it's massage like a Swedish massage. I think it's just when you're just rubbing it, God,
okay, that
arm.
Makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's
imagining her being
a deep
all
tissue.
Right, give me this bruise. We're gonna massage it out. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
Is she massaging her own bruises or George's?
George's bruises.
That's way weirder.
It is. She's like
That's
taking
actually
care of
way
George.
weirder.
She's
I
like,
thought it was her own.
let's put a Band-Aid on. Let's massage your bruises
No,
away.
no, don't do that. I would massage my own bruises of like, just, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ran. Or like to disperse the pain if I run into the corner of my desk because it's a day ending in Y for me. And my work desk is really sharp on the corners for some reason. And so I just gotta like rub the whole general area so it's not as sharp of a pain and then I move on with my day. I wouldn't do it to someone else. That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah, most of the wounds are mental in this book.
Though Nancy does also get her hair pulled by some
Oh,
monkey.
yeah. And then George and Bess are like laughing at it. I was like, what is your problem, people? Because she tries to remove her from the monkey's paw, if you will, and can't get it out. And they're like, that's hilarious. I'm like, no. George and Bess were out of character in this book. And Carson was more like he was in the last book, which is why I was wondering if this was a writer situation where Carson's like, and you do this and you do this. And did you notice my bacon is burning? I'll keep reading the newspaper of like, dang, this is rough.
Yes. Yeah, it was an odd characterization for some of our faves.
Yeah. Bess did crash a car, but I don't think it counts. So we don't have to have that section necessarily.
Yeah, yes. I think, because only Bess crashed the car, and it was fine. She was fine. Everything was fine.
Drew's clues.
About Bess and George, they can't come to the frat party because they've promised to perform in a play for children.
I wrote that down as well. Adorable.
I love that.
Tell me
I want
more
to
about
see
this
them
play for
in the
children.
play. Yeah, I was like, let's do a chapter on that. Nancy did so much crime in this, and she was like, Rishi, you can't go in this abandoned house. You haven't the right. As if she's like educating him on like, this is America. You can't do that because they've been like, hey, to Rye, this is America. You can't beat your child. But she's like, you can't go in that house. And then she goes in the house to go after him. And then she also just like steals papers from someone and never gives them back. And it's just, I don't know. She does more crime than usual for the books, I think.
Yes, and also like terrible example to be setting for Rishi if you're trying to teach him about following the rules. Don't go to Nancy Drew's house for that.
Yeah. I didn't realize this was maybe foreshadowing, and maybe it wasn't. But going back, Nancy's talking about, I have the incriminating documents that will convict her. And Carson goes, you must be very careful about what you do or say. You are getting into deep water. Not so deep that I can't swim out. She smiles confidently. And later, she has to save Mrs. Allison, who, like, tries to drown herself, jumps off a bridge, and she knows she can't swim, but, like, she does have to save someone from the water.
Yeah, insane. Like, from a suicide attempt.
Yes.
Like,
actively, she's like, no, do not save me. And Nancy sees that this is a precarious situation. She tries not to get closer. She tells people that it's happening, and she keeps an eye on it. She realizes that Anita can't swim, goes in after her, specifically like is told, no, don't save me. Like, I do not want to live past this. I think she knows like there's no way out. And most people are in these books have just been like, oh yeah, no, I'll just tell you everything. But she's like, no, I'm going to get out of the situation. Let me drown. The woman pleaded. Nancy's only reaction was to tighten her hold under the woman's armpit because she's gripping her in a safe cross-chest carry specifically.
Yes, because she has her rescue training.
She does. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Oh, that was another thing I'd put it for Blast from the Past is like, yeah, Nancy, we need you to come with her to the station to offer evidence. You could just get some dry clothes from the matron at police headquarters. You can? What? Oh, who? She like the dorm mom? What's happening here? The den mother? I don't know what's happening.
I also put for Drew's clues, the Drew's house has a third floor with a guest room and full bathroom.
We knew that because Hannah had to be up there, and she was when
I guess I assumed she was on the second floor.
I thought she was in the third. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize their house was so large.
It's ginormous.
Nancy doesn't know the names of most of the trees or birds in her area because Rishi keeps asking. He's like, what's that? She, Bess, and George don't know. And now I don't have any judgment for Nancy on this because I just over this last year and a half started learning about all of the plants around me. And I'm now at a point where I'm like, that's an oak tree. You can tell because of this. It's always interesting to see what Nancy isn't good at or doesn't know.
I did like their reaction. Not that I want them to be embarrassed, but it says the girls were slightly embarrassed when they could not always answer him. They resolved to devote themselves to nature lore with new interest.
Yes.
I liked that. That was very charming.
I do too.
Speaking of charming, Hannah loves Rishi.
I know.
I declare Rishi has wound himself around my heart, she confides. I didn't realize how much he meant to me until this accident. And that's when she starts planning how to get him some education and as well as broth and thinking about bringing a doctor and not bringing a doctor. And I love Hannah so much.
I do too.
Nancy, when she's listening to Anita Allison's elaborate poetic translations, she is disturbed, it says, by Mrs. Allison's unexplained actions, as are Bess and George, but those two leave, and Nancy had no intention of leaving the scene. She believed that by listening intently to the passages, she might pick up a valuable clue, and that's why she's like, yeah, no, keep talking, let's go. She also at one point is like, yeah, maybe she was under a spell, and that might explain this, and I don't think she believes in spells, but I think she believes that Mrs. Allison could believe in spells enough that that could change her behaviors and actions. I don't know. Maybe she does believe in spells, but she goes, perhaps, Anita Allison, she was under a spell and duped into it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Carson and Nancy were way too tactful about the boxes, the mysterious boxes of jewels.
Yes, agreed. No follow-up
This is not the time
questions.
for that. Even when jewels spill out and George is like, well, you could have told me I was carrying jewels. I'm like, well, we didn't know. And also, what were you going to do different?
Yeah, for real.
George also at the very end is thinking ahead. Mr. Tilak, before you repair this ivory charm that he's about to, they break the foot off to cure Rishi with the antidote, and he's going to repair it and give it back to Nancy because, of course, he is. Mr. Tilak, before you repair the ivory charm for Nancy, you'd better put a powerful restorative inside. She always has close calls when she solves a mystery. Everyone laughed and agreed the idea was a good one. I don't know that we should laugh. I think that's true.
We should all nod sagely and be like, yes, that's a good point.
Yes.
Sleuthing skills.
One of the skills you need to know is memorize really complicated codes, such as rapping sharply 6 times and then repeating it. She almost doesn't do it until George reminds her that you have to repeat the 6 sharp raps, and then the secret door will open. You have to be able to measure openings with your eye, which I think means, like, eyeball and estimate it, but I did think she was, like, kind of putting her eye next to it, like, that's about 7 eyeballs big. I could probably get through there. It's like hands to measure a horse.
Yeah.
Sleuthing skills that she does not possess. Don't sleep soundly. She got robbed of a necklace she was wearing. That was scary.
That is.
He went into the room with, like, the dorm room with the girls. Rye came in and stole a necklace off of Nancy's body. That's not good. That freaked me out, actually.
Your doors. That's your sleuthing skill. Be good at locking your door.
Uh-huh.
Maybe if you're staying at the fraternity house, maybe put a second barrier in place on the door to keep men out.
Yes, my other sleuthing skill. If you see a rusty saw, use it. In vain, the cousins search for a knife because Rishi's up in some ropes and stuff, and they're trying to cut him free. They're like, what is going on here? Perhaps Mr. Bat has a pocket knife lying around here. They search for a knife. They're about to give up in despair. George spied a rusty old saw in a dark corner and snatched it. And that's good. You should just pocket that in your inventory for later if you ever see a rusty old saw, or for right now.
Then maybe just hold on to it, because you never know when you're going to need another rusty
just keep
saw.
it in your pocket. Like, how bad could it be?
Miscellaneous mysteries.
Do you want to talk about Rishi's, the way he talks?
Yes, I do. I mean, like, I don't, but I do.
Yeah.
You and I have worked with English language learners.
A ton of them.
I think, yeah.
That's the major population of our school.
Yes. I worked at 3 different schools, and this was common at all of them. I always had English language learners of a variety of different languages and different cultures from all over the world. This is not how English language learners speak.
No. Okay, in my head, I was like, wow, I don't feel like that's how they talk, but how would I know? I forgot that I have 9 years of experience. This is not how they talk.
Right? Yeah, trying to be generous, trying to be a generous reader and being like, wait a second, no, I know this. I know this for a fact.
Yes.
English language learners do not refer to themselves in the third person.
Correct. They're not Elmo.
Exactly. It was very off-putting, and it broke, like, there are many things that broke my immersion. This, though, is every single line, every time he spoke.
At one point, he corrects himself and then goes right back to it.
Because
he's learning from the professor.
Because he's learning. And he's like, like the professor taught me. And this is just incorrect. And I guess I can make the assumption that it's to make it really obvious to the readers that this is not his first language. And
maybe the writer didn't know anyone who didn't speak English fluently. Like, you know how when you're like, this is not how they write a child. I do think that little Tommy, that's a child. He saw someone on an elephant. He saw an elephant. He was like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very off-putting.
Yes.
The whole time. Just the whole time. What's wrong with the cousins on page 35? They're looking at Mrs. Allison's land and how it might be turned into a golf course. As they gazed across a picturesque creek, Nancy said, "Can you imagine yourself standing here and driving a golf ball over the water?" "I can't," Bess replied, "because my ball would certainly plop into it." "I'd want half of the trees cut down," George added. "Girl, what? Are they in the way of the golf? Do you just hate nature? What is happening on this page
strange
specifically?"
responses.
Yes.
My miscellaneous mystery, one of them, is why does Carson not say this out loud right after they helped Mrs. Allison rescue her boxes from the secret passageway as it was collapsing? And Mrs. Allison fainted, then pretended to be, to be in a stupor. Carson Drew became impatient. He was inclined to believe that the woman made no effort to control her nerves and actually tried to create highly emotional scenes. I think you are exactly right, Carson, and I think Mrs. Allison needs to be called out directly on this.
I agree, although I do not know that now, while we're in a collapsing tunnel, is the greatest time to have this conversation. So perhaps we could remain tactful for about 10 more minutes until you take her jewels to a bank of unknown location, and then you can talk to her about, hey, so, friend, when we are in an emergency, this is not a good choice.
Yes. Somebody needs to bring this to her attention.
Somebody should. Oh my gosh. A metatextual one at the end, there's the order form, and it goes, this one says, "Now that you've met Nancy Drew and her friends, we're sure you'll want to, quote, accompany, unquote, them on other exciting adventures." Well, now it feels stupid. I thought I was accompanying them. I thought I was going on adventures, but you put quotes on it, and now you've broken my immersion. I know. Nancy steps on the foot brake, which feels like a weird thing to specify unless they also have a handbrake. Do they have a handbrake? I don't think they do. Another mystery. Why are there ice cubes in the refrigerator? I guess I call the fridge-freezer combo in my house the fridge. But I also wouldn't say, hey, there's ice cubes in the refrigerator, an ample supply of them for the professor that got knocked out.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Why do they think that Rishi will be safe? She says, "Oh, you've had a bitter experience, Rishi, but I'm sure you'll be safe as long as you remain with Dr. Stackpole." My mystery is, why do you think that?
Right?
There is no evidence that
And they are immediately proven wrong.
Immediately proven wrong, and it's the worst he's ever been because he got poisoned. This is 1.5 on the same page, same layout. Rishi's like, "Okay, I'm going to bed now. Got to get up at 4 o'clock. The others gasped and he doesn't talk like that, but I'm paraphrasing. The others gasped and Hannah grew and said, 4 o'clock? Not in this house. You may sleep until 7 o'clock. Not as late as you wish because you've been through a dreadful experience. 7 o'clock.
Still
at
wake
latest.
you up.
Oh, for sure. And then Carson's like, "Oh gosh, we might have him here for a while. I think we should borrow some clothes for him. Is there a boy around here who's about his size?" I agree that this is a practical solution, but also you're rich. Why are you not buying him clothes? You buy clothes for everyone you meet, like Nancy does anyway. Carson doesn't, I guess. Yeah, that was interesting. What is Carson a lawyer of? Do we know this? Because he knows the value of real estate. They're saying consult Carson about real estate. Is he a real estate guy? Usually? I didn't think he was.
This is not the first time that I feel like he's been tied to real estate. I wonder, do we know what kind of lawyer he is?
I don't know. That's my mystery.
Or is he just a general lawyer who knows a little bit about everything, like jack of all trades kind of?
Maybe. General lawyer?
Or do they just assume? They're like, "Oh, he's a lawyer. He knows about this stuff." And he's like, "No, I don't. Stop."
It's got a law attached to it, obviously. Final miscellaneous mystery. George, again, what do you mean by this? Mrs. Allison is talking about reincarnation. Bess comments, "She's spooky. Reincarnation means that after you die, you'll be reborn as another person or animal, doesn't it?" "I'll probably be a goat," George chuckles.
love that.
And Nancy just goes, shh, because she doesn't want to miss what she's saying. What does that mean? Do you like to climb? Are you annoying and loud? Like, what do you, rectangular pupils?
Does she just want to be a goat?
Does she just want to be a goat? That's
Maybe
fine.
it's her
I
favorite
just want to
animal.
know what she meant. What's your intent here?
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, characters not getting to explain themselves that I just really want to know. What do you mean?
Correct.
What does that mean?
And that one wasn't even a cut-off sentence like some of them.
Right?
Gumshoe Game Show.
What are you playing for?
Obviously, the Ivory Charm, while it does make me uncomfortable to have a piece of ivory, I think that, one, it's relevant, and two, I mean, ivory trade is now illegal in most countries, but if it already exists, I think I
It's
will
not going
accept
back
it.
on the elephant at this
It's
point.
not going back on the elephant, exactly.
Or
So I
walrus in
will,
the case of the rosary I have.
yes,
So
play
you
for
will
the Ivory
accept.
Charm.
Okay. Are you going to fill it with anything in particular? You can fill it with one liquid.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of something that like would keep. I was like soda, and I was like, that won't keep. That'll get flat so fast. I think I want to put ink in it so I can like dip a quill in, or be like a squid and be like, okay, shoot, and, like spray them with some ink.
Excellent. Okay, this is good. Squid ink elephant charm.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of things in this book reminded me of just other media properties. So that I think I've done a similar one of this before. So
Okay.
the titular ivory charm is said to have the power of life and death, in that it might be filled with poison or a powerful antidote. What creature from Greek mythology has a body part with similar powers? Is it A, the griffin's claw, B, gorgon blood, C, centaur blood, or D, a dracon scale?
Pretty sure it's gorgon blood?
Correct.
Yes.
One side has the bane of mankind, and one side of the gorgons, the blood provides salvation. As a bonus, which side is which?
Oh, gosh.
You know this. Even if you don't know this, you do know this.
Like side, like left and right?
Correct.
I would say the left is the sinister side.
Correct. Exactly right.
So that would be my
Yes.
assumption. There we go. Okay.
Yes. It's
that
unclear
bonus
if
point.
this is all Gorgons. This is specifically something Athena gave to Asclepius from the Gorgon that she slew to make her shield.
Got
But
it.
it is, of course, in the Percy Jackson sequel series,
Of course.
Heroes of Olympus. Specifically, she just gave him 2 drops, but one from each side. Number 2. In this book, there's a stone door that only opens from one direction, specifically from the inside. A similar door is mentioned in the first few moments of Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out movie, so it's not a spoiler. It's named after a biblical character. After whom is this door named? A, Jesus, B, Joseph, C, Zacharias, or D, Lazarus?
I'm like 90% sure it's Lazarus.
Correct.
I mean, both Lazarus and Jesus in the Bible return from the dead, but Jesus is the one who is locked in a tomb and leaves via the inside out. Lazarus, I think, is just like brought back to life, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
After the shortest verse in the Bible, which is?
Awake or arise. Or-
Close. Jesus wept.
Jesus
Even though he knew he was going to bring him back, he still cries.
Ugh.
That was not the bonus question. The bonus question is, who plays Richard Lazarus of Lazarus Laboratories in Doctor Who's The Lazarus Experiment? This is in Season 3, Episode 6.
Mark Gatiss.
Yes, very good. He also plays Mycroft. Very good. I
And
realize I've
also
been too
is the
mean lately.
co-creator of
Yep.
the BBC Sherlock.
Correct. He's also a writer on some episodes, though not this one, of Doctor Who.
Yes, correct.
All right, you're 4 for 2. Killing
Oh
it.
my goodness, this
I've
is
been
awesome.
too mean lately. Number 3, this is karma swinging back at you. Number 3, while visiting the circus, we see some ill-behaved monkeys. In the book, Curious George rides a bike. Why does George get in trouble at the circus? Notably, it's not Curious George goes to the circus. He just gets distracted while riding a bike. Is it A, he is told to paint something, and instead of doing one solid color, he paints a beautiful jungle mural? B, he feeds a bugle to an ostrich? C, he saves a baby bear? Or D, he accidentally calls 911 on a rotary phone?
Oh my goodness. The thing is, I remember reading a bunch of Curious Georges when I was really little, and so I think some of these are real, but
not from this book, perhaps.
from this book. Like
That could perhaps be true.
I feel like I remember the 911 call, but I don't think it's in this. I also feel like giving a bugle to an ostrich also is real. For some reason, I want to go with B.
Correct.
Yes.
He heard, hey, don't go near the ostrich. It'll eat anything. And he's like, is that true? And he feeds a bugle to the ostrich. And then it gets stuck in the throat, and it's a whole thing.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. I'm remembering
But then
this.
later that book, he does save a baby bear. He just doesn't get in trouble for it. Because the ostrich pulls on the cord that opens the cage. It's trying to eat the cord tie or whatever. And he lets out the baby bear, and the baby bear goes up a tree, and then he doesn't know how to get down. But Curious George knows how to get up, and then he like puts the bear in his mail bag because he was ostensibly delivering newspapers this whole time.
Of course.
And then A and D are from book 1 called Curious George, right after he gets poached. Oh, no. I think the painting one is he's supposed to get a job. But these are things he gets in trouble for, even though it's very impressive, and I can't dial 911 on a rotary phone, probably. If I did, it would take me a while, and I definitely can't paint a beautiful jungle mural. Bonus, what is the main difference between a bugle and a trumpet?
Ooh.
Or a major difference?
I feel like the trumpet has the slide and a bugle doesn't.
Very close. Trumpet has buttons. Bugle has nothing. Bugle, you just have to adjust your embouchure. That's why it's mostly like taps. So a trumpet, tuba, a trombone, a baritone, all of those are essentially 7 bugles put together, because you can still do the embouchure stuff, but then you can do 7 different positions.
I was not a band kid at all.
I was unfortunately a tubist. You are 5 for 3. So already doing great.
This is great.
Number 4. There's talk of turning Mrs. Allison's property into a golf course. Which of these animal words is not associated with golf? A, swan, B, eagle, C, birdie, or D, albatross.
Ooh.
I guess I could have just said bird words. They are all animals, but they're also specifically birds.
I know that eagle and birdie are correct.
Okay. So you're deciding between swan and
albatross.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards albatross.
Unfortunately, albatross is a real one. That is
Darn.
also called a double eagle, simply not what an albatross is. Or, quote, the rarest of birds, unquote, and that's when you get 3 below par. Whereas eagle's 2 under par, birdie's 1 under par, and swan's just a bird. That was not a media, because what I meant to do for that one was Tarzan, because I was thinking about how when they cut Rishi loose, they have to make sure they don't like lose him down into the no floor. And so they are cutting him loose, but also tying him up. And that's what happens with Clayton and Tarzan at the end. But I forgot about it until we just flipped through. So that one was a placeholder until I remembered what the other media thing was. And then I forgot. So that one doesn't have a bonus. And number 5, the guy in charge of the circus is named Mr. Strong, which means I had songs from You're in Town the musical stuck in my head the whole time, as the main character is named Bobby Strong. Which of these do Mark Holman and Greg Cotis, the writers of that musical, rhyme with Strong in that musical? Is it A, you are wrong? Is it B, disperse your throng? Is it C, held his pee for much too long? Or D, you and your socialistic throng?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I've never seen You're in Town or heard it.
It is URINETOWN. Okay.
I'm familiar.
I just wanted to make sure.
I'm familiar that it exists, but I know
nothing about it.
nothing
Here's the thing.
it
When I
at
told
all.
people I was involved with it in high school, it's a great musical. My homeroom teacher was like, it sounds like you just said urine. I'm like, and that would be because I did.
Did in fact say it. That is correct. I'm going between B and D.
Okay. Is it disperse your throng and you and your socialistic throng?
I'm going to, those are the 2 I'm going between. I'm going to say B.
They are all correct.
Aww.
They are all rhymes, so you win.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Me and You and Nancy Drew and learning about Sanskrit with us.
This podcast is lovingly dedicated to the memory of my wonderful mother, Shar, the woman who got me hooked on sassy female detective stories. I also want to thank my brother, Ben, also known as Digital Women, for creating most of our sound and music cues for this podcast. Thanks, Ben.
You can check out our website, meandyounandnancydrew.com, for show transcripts, our episode calendar if you'd like to read along with us, and links to our Patreon, where we will post any images that we describe during the podcast. Those will be visible to anyone without a paywall, but if you'd like to become a patron, we have some very fun perks, including outtakes and discussions that got cut for time, stickers, cross-stitch patterns to create your own Drewseum at home, and more.
Thank you, Megan, for editing this podcast and creating a few additional sound cues.
Thank you, Colleen, for also editing the podcast, for transcribing the episodes, and for designing our website and Patreon perks.
Thank you to our partners for the support, love, and microphones.
Thank you to libraries everywhere for giving access to Nancy Drew books and Curious George books and media of all kinds to people everywhere for free.
And finally, thank you, of course, to the one and only Carolyn Keene for independently writing 620 Nancy Drew novels from 1930 to present day. Join us next episode for our discussion of The Whispering Statue.
And don't forget the moral of this episode.
I'd rather consult the stars